Welcome to this tutorial video. In this video, we are going to discuss together some physiology exam questions. So if you are new into this channel, please subscribe, like, and don't forget to share the video with your friends. For now, get a pen and a paper. Are you ready? If so, let's move to the first question. Okay, so let us begin with the first question, which reads, Billy has been a straight A student throughout all elementary school, but recently his mother has been noticing that his grades has been dropping since he entered the 5th grade. He sits in the middle of the class, and his teacher has been noticing that he has started to squint when looking up at the board. Let's just examine the question first. This Billy has been good throughout, but then his grade has been dropping. Where does he sit? In the middle of the class. What happened recently? The teacher has noticed that he has started now to squint when looking up at the board. Now, what are the questions now? Part A of the question read, Part A, what visual acuity defect does Billy have? Well, because of squinting, being in the middle of the class, and the grade dropping, so Billy has a myopia or nearsightedness. Why? Because the anteroposterior diameter of his eyeballs are too long, so he cannot see far away objects which are found where? On the board. So maybe one list is taking notes with some few mistakes because he can't see properly, and this explains the dropping of his grades. Part B of the question, what type of lens would you suggest him to use? The answer, he should wear a concave lens. Why? Because a concave lens diverges light entering the eyes so that same light now focuses properly the image where? On the retina. Yes, he should wear a concave lens. The next question, explain molecular mechanism occurring in rods during day and night. Now, what are rods? Let's first understand them. What are rods? So rods are a type of what? They are types of photoreceptor cells. These photoreceptor cells are found in the outer nuclear layer of the retina. These rods are extremely sensitive to light, and they are receptors which are used for night vision. They give good vision in low light. Now we also have cones. Yes, cones are another type of photoreceptors which are also found in the retina, but cones are less light sensitive, and they mediate daylight vision. So now we want to understand the mechanism, what happens in the rods during day when there's light and during night when there is dark. Okay? So the answer is here. When light strikes the outer segment of the rods, the photosensitive compounds which are found in the rods now will initiate a reaction. That reaction now converts the cyclic guanosine monophosphate into 5' GMP. That now leads to the closure of the cyclic GMP gated cation channels, which now prevent the entry of sodium, and this leads to hyperpolarizing receptor potential, which now reduces the release of the neurotransmitter known as what? Glutamate. So the glutamate release is reduced. This generates a signal in the bipolar cells that ultimately leads to what? To an action potential in the ganglion cells that now will be transmitted to the cerebral cortex in the brain to produce the sensation of vision. Now, what happens now in the dark or at night? Well, in the dark, the cyclic GMP gated cation channels in the outer segment of the rods are open. They are widely open so that sodium now enters through those channels. So the current now flows from the inner to the outer segment and to the synaptic ending of the photoreceptor. Then, to maintain equilibrium, we have the sodium-potassium ATPase pump there to maintain the ionic equilibrium. Now, when the currents now reach the synaptic ending of the photoreceptors, that neurotransmitter glutamate is now released abundantly, and it is steady in the dark. So, in the dark, the channels are widely opened. Sodium entry is there, and there is more glutamate which are released during the night compared to when there is light or during the day. The channels are closed, no entry of sodium into the cells, and there is hyperpolarizing receptor potentials. Outline taste transduction in bitter, sour, and salty. Now, transduction is the conversion of a sensory stimulus. That stimulus can be taste, like in this context, into an electric signals which are collected, integrated, and processed by what? By the central nervous system. Okay? Now I want to talk about the sense of taste. The sense of taste is the sensory system that is responsible for the perception of flavor or the perception of taste. The taste comes about when substances like food enters into the mouth, then react chemically with the taste receptor cells which are located where? Which are found in our taste buds, which are mostly found on our tongues. So, the taste receptors which are found in the mouth, on the tongue, those taste receptors, they are able to sense 5 taste modalities. Those taste modalities are, we have saltiness, sweetness, sourness, bitterness, and savouriness or umami. Now, there are those chemicals which are there now to trigger the taste, the sense of taste. Those chemicals are known as tastants. Okay? Those chemicals are, we have sodium chloride, we have sucrose, we have hydrochloric acid, we can have quinine, and monosodium glutamate. So now in this question, we just focus our attention in bitter, sour, and salty. So let's see what happens in these 3 modalities. Let's begin with bitter taste. So, bitter taste is triggered by poisons, triggered by bitter compounds like quinine, triggered by strychnine as well. Now, these compounds or these molecules are membrane permeable, and they also block the potassium sensitive channels. Let's also go to sour taste. So sourness detect acidity. Okay, it is triggered by protons and it is mediated by epithelial sodium channels, which allow the entry of that proton so that it can bind and block the potassium sensitive channel, causing the fall of the potassium concentration that now leads to depolarization of the membrane. So a hyperpolarization activated cyclic nucleotide gated cation channel can also contribute to the sour transduction. So in the sour there is what we call hydrochloric acid, or which can release a proton, and the proton now triggers the sourness. Then in beta there we mentioned about those beta compounds like quinine, like poisons, even like strychnine. Let's now go to saltiness. Okay, so salty taste is triggered by sodium chloride mediated by epithelial sodium channel, which permits the entry of sodium into the salt receptor, causing a receptor potential. Yes, then this will bring about exocytosis of a synaptic vesicle, and then the release of the neurotransmitter, which now will trigger an action potential in the first order neuron. Okay, now these first order neurons can be the facial nerve, it can be the glossopharyngeal nerve, it can be even the vagus nerve, because this nerve, they need to supply the tongue. They also supply the epiglottis and the throat, where we find the gustatory receptors or the taste receptors. So from these first order neurons, the taste fibers now from these three neurons, they're going to unite where they unite together in the nucleus of tractus solitarius, which are found where? Are found in the medulla oblongata. And from there now, the second order neurons now will ascend in the ipsilateral medial meniscus, and then they will project to the thalamus. That's where now the third order neurons will pass to the ipsilateral cortex, where now perception of taste is actually. So the next question is, outline the characteristics that govern sensory information. So those characteristics are, we have a sensory transduction, then we have sensory coding, we have sensory representations, and we have sensory integrations. So we discussed already about sensory transduction, which is the conversion of a sensory stimulus into electric signals which are collected, integrated, and processed by the CNS, central nervous system. So those sensory stimulus can be light, can be taste, can be sound, can be touch, or can be smell. Once they are collected, integrated, they are processed by the CNS. That conversion of those stimulus are known as what? Sensory transduction. Then we have coding, sensory coding. These consist of converting a receptor stimulus to a recognizable sensation. So all sensory system codes for 4 elementary attributes, and those attributes are we have modalities, we have location, we have intensity, we also have duration. Then we have sensory representations. Then lastly, sensory integrations, which is a process that in which our senses receive information and use that information in everyday activities. So those are the characteristics that govern sensory information. Again, sensory transduction, sensory coding, sensory representations, and lastly, we have sensory integration. The next question, outline the transduction of sound, stating which component transduce high pitch sound. So the transduction of sound is the conversion of a sensory stimulus, which is sound in this case, from the environment into an electric signals which is now processed by the central nervous system, just as we have discussed already. So guys, the sound that comes from my voice, okay, these sounds will cause vibrations, okay, in the air molecules. This air molecules now passes through the ear canal, and then they cause vibrations of the eardrum or the tympanic membrane. This tympanic membrane moves in and moves out. This movement will now transmit the vibrations where to the auditory bones, the ossicles. Okay, these ossicles now will also vibrate. Then the vibration then will be passed on to the cochlea. There in the cochlea, there we find the hair cells. The hair cells are the receptors for hearing. They are involved in hearings. The hair cells found on the sensory epithelium of the organ of Corti, they tend to bend. Okay, so they bend. Once they bend, now they will cause the movement of the basilar membrane. So the hair cells are able to convert this movement of the basilar membrane, okay, and which is a mechanical energy, okay, into an electrical signals, graded receptor potential. So the mechanical energy from sound vibrations are transduced into electrical energy or electrical signals by the hair cells, which are the receptors for hearing, and those hair cells are found where? In the inner ear. Okay, so the second part of the question was, which component transduce high-pitched sound? So high-pitched sound are transduced at the base of the cochlea. Then low-pitched sound is transduced where? In the upper part or the apex of the cochlea. So this marks the end of our video for today. I thank you so much for paying attention and watching it to the end. My name is Meshba. See you next time. Thank you.